Game begin.
Z-Force Genesis is the first RPG game in Hong Kong for everyone with all abilities and backgrounds.
Z-Force Genesis is a tabletop role-playing game based around superhero themes.
It's a project for students with different abilities and backgrounds to work as a team.
Z-Force Genesis is a unique hands-on learning experience with an immersive game at the core, facilitated by newcomers to the genre via a unique hands-on teaching experience.
TREATS is an NGO and charity in Hong Kong with the vision of creating an inclusive society for all children. We have an aim of eliminating social exclusion and bridging social gaps for children with all abilities and backgrounds. I think it was about 2 years ago, we were planning to have a game which can bring our social outcomes to the primary school children in Hong Kong, especially for those with special educational needs. We talk about the ones with like ADHD, ASD, or different kinds of special needs. Ideally, we would like to have a game they can learn about problem solving, teamwork, and social inclusion through the game, and of course, it's also important the game will empower them to make their own choices and decisions. And surely we want them to have lots of fun during the game. I think that's the background how we met Prescott, Vince, and his team. This little idea was eventually embarked a whole creative journey between us. And we have created the first custom-made RPG game in Hong Kong, Z-Force Genesis, for children with all abilities and backgrounds. Now they can enjoy the fun of RPG game in a respect and equal opportunities environment.
Z-Force Genesis is a game trying to prime imagination from our players. We use original game artwork such as these to create scenes that allow for boundless decisions and for students to kind of take charge of how they choose to participate and interact within these situations. So the game, to start off with, is based around a series of interaction methods. As you can see here from this picture depicting a nuclear factory, there are vines crawling out of the ceiling. There is an abandoned sports car. Some students would try to be oh, I want to scale the wall, to try to poke the vines. In which case we'd ask them to roll perhaps okay, in that case you'll be interacting with something. And each of these decisions will lead to a unique outcome facilitated by the game master, which would result in very branching narratives for students to explore and reflect upon. Each student would, of course, choose an archetype based on a famous superhero tropes as seen in the last decade. And after each lesson and playing through the scenarios, battling the boss fights and saving the people, we will have a quest journal in which for students to reflect on the journey they've undertaken that day and think about what exactly did their decisions cause? What were the benefits? What were the drawbacks? It also allows students to understand ultimately that their decisions matter. As a narrative branches off in different directions based on their decisions, they would realize there is no perfect solution to being a superhero or just being a person in general. Everybody has a different story, and we hope that Z-Force Genesis to be the catalyst to allow these students to understand that the world is a world full of imagination, full of difficult choices, and ultimately your choices matter.
Part of the design process that was really important to us was firstly understanding TREATS' idea of the scope, because ultimately we are designing for them to facilitate. So very quickly we decided that this was going to take the form of a 3-act structure, plus a session 0 where character creation would take place. Knowing that we were designing ultimately also for kids aged 8 to 11, we wanted to make something that was relatable. So a theme, a story that was set in a fictional city like Hong Kong, plus a superhero team that they would understand, kind of like the Avengers. Having them create characters, come in and go on 3 successive progressive stories was one of our aims for the narrative. Internally, what we also wanted to do was to make sure that the 3 episodes also differed significantly. We settled on 3 internal themes as part of the story design. The first theme was us against the world. The second was us against the other, and the third was us against ourselves, right? So really thinking of ways to hook the narrative together, tie in the story beats and things like that. As for what the stories are actually about, I'm not going to spoil that here for you. As any game designer would know, probably the most important process in the entire experience is actually playtesting. Right? So what we wanted to do was obviously start with testing with our team internally, but then also bringing the game to seasoned gamers as well as experienced theater performers, and ultimately also educators and facilitators. So this kind of step-by-step playtest process allowed us to first understand and first verify that our story was cohesive and interesting, and then the game mechanics were solid and structured, and ultimately that the facilitation, the debriefing would also make a lot of sense. We were very clear on designing something that the Treats team could really take and go out to schools and go out to their programs, and for the Treats team to act as the game masters for the game that we had designed and given to them. So knowing that this project would ultimately help Treats further their social inclusion message to kids, we really wanted to design a tool to help bridge the gap between the game world and the real world for the kids as well. So what we ended up doing was to take a role-playing game trope, the quest journal. So as they go through the different questions at the end of each episode, the really cool thing was that they were so immersed and invested into the superhero story that they brought that same immersion and investment into the post-game discussion, talking about empathy, social inclusion, environmental conservation, all of those different messages that we wanted to have inside the game design. And seeing that come through was really rewarding for us.
When the school heard this pilot project, they were very excited. I was a little bit hesitated because we moved this pilot project during the time of pandemic, the COVID, but eventually it turned out to be a really, really good and rewarding experience. Specifically, I really enjoy a lot about the character building, development, and the episode building. It were the most unforgettable part because it was so compressed, but at the same time, it got so many creative elements there. So we worked out together how to build a total of like 15 characters with 3 to 4 episodes. It was so enjoyable.
In my past experience, I have full of experience in some facilitation, engagement, and handle with different kinds of difficult members. It is quite challenging for me as I need to, like an actor, I need to present a story dramatically. Therefore, I need to practice many times before I present the stories, and I need to fully understand the uniqueness of every character.
So to make things easier for our first-time Game Masters, we also created digital Game Master slides. We put all the story beats, all the different branching storylines, all the different potential outcomes, different potential actions, plus also a soundtrack into this interactive document so that whenever kids made decisions to go for a different action or to explore a different part of the map, the Game Masters would have a very easy reference. For example, if a kid decided to interact with a computer screen in one of the maps, the facilitator could wait to see what the outcome of the dice roll was before clicking on that outcome on the interactive slides, and that would bring the facilitator immediately to the outcome of that story and bring the kids along the next story beat because of that outcome.
I think it is an amazing experience for me as a facilitator and game master because in the game, in each school, we had about 5 to 6 students from diverse abilities and backgrounds to form a superheroes group. Actually, we usually experience the storming phase in the episode 1. Many of the teammates insisted their views, and sometimes they ignored any cues and purely wanted to solve the problems by combating each other. During the process, we needed to facilitate them to apply different methods to complete different missions. In the debriefing section, we guided them to think of the consequences in making impulsive decisions, how to make a better team decision, etc. It was great to witness that they built a better team. They learned to appreciate diversity and learned to step into others' shoes.
People love playing games, they love having fun. And we also learned that creativity is so unlimited. And we have to trust our children because go through the game, they learn about how to make their own decisions. They work out with their teammates and solve different problems. And most importantly, we prove that even children with different abilities, such as those with ADHD, those with ASD, it's just a kind of label to them because when they go to the game, they play together, they just forgot everything. They just want to work it out, have some fun and solve the problem and learn to be a better generations and do some more good to the society. I think those are the things is what we have learned through this amazing creative project. What I really want to do is, this is only the beginning and we will work together with all creative peoples in the field and do the synergy thing together, and we believe that different sectors all come together, we can make bigger things for our society. And I think this is really the essence of game for change.